What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point. We're up over 60, 70 different episodes here. We've just been having a hell of a ride, and it's been a journey meeting so many artists from down in Nashville, from all over the US, up in Canada, over in Australia, over in Ireland. Like I haven't traveled that much, but I feel like I've been traveling my whole life just talking to all these artists from all different places and from all different genres. And I'm super excited today to have Dakota Poorman on. Dakota, how are you, man?
I'm wonderful, man. Thank you for having me.
No, of course. It's actually kind of cool and unique how I actually got you on the show is because through Music City Media and everything, I interviewed Emily Peischer, and
hmm
that was my first interview I did. And then they started reaching out about all these other artists, and I heard you. They sent me over some of your stuff, and I'm like, I got to get Dakota on the show. Like that's a no brainer at this point. So it just
I love it.
it's super cool how it really just kind of comes full circle because just making these connections in the music business and kind of doing this stuff. Like I have a couple other interviews with some other artists that are with Music City Media as well, and it's just kind of really cool, and it just shows how these connections and hard work kind of does pay off, and it can just open so many different doors.
Yeah, man. The hard work and the connection, like the connections that you make socializing down there, man. It's just it's you never know who you're gonna know.
Exactly. And it is like I said, it's been crazy because like I'm just up here in Boston, Mass, kind of just doing my thing with the songwriting, producing, and working my full-time job, just doing this on the side. And
I
just
love it, dude.
no, exactly. And just meeting all these different artists, like I said, from all over the world. It's so cool. Like, cause I mean, I do interview rap artists, I do interview pop artists and stuff, but everyone knows that I'm born and raised a country boy, and that's where all my music comes from.
The
But it's
same,
just
same.
exactly. So it's so cool just to kind of hear the different styles, even though it's country music. Like, because I've interviewed country artists from up in Canada, overseas, and stuff like that, and then just here in like Nashville, here in the U.S. and stuff like that. It's just so cool just to hear the different sides of everyone's story.
Yeah, dude.
So kind of hopping into the first question, it really just sets up the whole interview, and it's the basic of basics. I mean, it's the most simple question that I could ask, but it also just really starts the whole story is where did music start for you? Because I know for a lot of people, it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and they start just developing their craft from the day they were born. But I always like to say then another good example is like me. I only started back in 2018 with the songwriting and producing and really getting into the whole music aspect. So where did kind of everything come about for you?
Oh man. So I mean, I always loved music growing up and stuff, but having it in the house, record players, and we had property out about an hour and a half away from our house, and that we'd go to all summer long, and we'd hang out at the lake, crank tunes. We'd listen to Creedence Clearwater. We'd listen to the Judds. We'd listen to the Doors. We'd listen to just we had just an ongoing giant collection of music, and I was just submerged at a really early age with a great collection of that. But it was mainly country that really was like my calling because I was in rock bands and stuff. I had a rock band when I was in high school, but it was country music that kind of brought me back to my roots. And
Yeah.
it was just something about it. It was home, right? But for me, the music process kind of started early. But I got bullied a lot in school, and so music was a way for me to take my guitar and just put all my emotions and my feelings and what I was going through into music. And so I haven't really um how do I put that? Yeah, I mean just being in my room and just plucking away on my guitar and writing really was the turning point when I was really young, and I was like, you know what, I really love music and I want to pursue this. And my favorite band back when I was growing up was ACDC. I think
Yeah.
that's everybody's favorite band, right? It's just loud guitars, loud drums, super simple, but super like extreme.
Yeah.
But I love the way that it makes you feel, man. You just get lost in a whole different world, and you can don't do anything with music.
Exactly. And
So
it no, and that's just it's awesome when you say stuff like that. And I remember the days that I was sitting in my room and just cranking out those songs, plucking on the guitar and just figuring some things out. I actually was just saying on another interview the other day as I went back, I was cleaning my room a few weeks ago and found some old stuff. And sometimes you go back to that, man, and I'll tell you, you look at some of that stuff and you're like, how the hell did I even write these words? And but then sometimes you find some gems in there, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I wrote
yeah,
something that I'm like,
right.
dang.
And I had the same thing. Like I had like probably 50 or 60 songs that I've wrote,
Yeah.
like just like messing around and stuff. And like I'd forgotten all about them. I lost the books and stuff. And lo and behold, I had them typed out and saved somehow. But like on like an old flash drive, I found all of them, and I was like, there's some good ones on here. What did I do? Why did I not put these out?
No, exactly. It's just it's crazy sometimes because like a lot of people talk about how they have stuff written down and they find it, and then like especially like voice memos and stuff. I'll tell you, like
Yep.
I'll be dead of night, all of a sudden I'll wake up out of a sound sleep and that line just hits me, and I'm like, I'm not gonna remember this in 30 seconds, let alone like 2 minutes. So I just
Yeah.
you get right on those voice memos and start plugging away, and even those are like the same as finding old songs that you've written. Sometimes you forget about the voice memos that you did the last night.
And it's funny that you say that because like I've even like late I've laid in bed with my fiance and stuff. She'll be next to me. I'm like, hey, just in case, if I wake up in the middle of the night, don't be alarmed. I'm a songwriter, honey.
No, exactly. And no, it's just it's crazy how all that stuff works. And I mean, just talking about the whole songwriting process and stuff like that is in country music, the thing that really gets me is the storytelling aspect and everything like that. As long as you can sit there and tell a good story, because you can sit there and listen to lyrics and people say all the time, like, oh, that's a great song, like fantastic. But then when you really deep dive and listen to those lyrics, it's when you really start to hear what the song is actually about and where it's actually taking you on this journey. And I know
Yeah.
there's so many amazing songwriters and singers out there, and I could sit here for hours talking about inspirations. And that's kind of leading into this next question is, like I said, I mean, that 90s, early 2000s country is really where I sit at home. Like that's home for me. And it's just crazy sometimes because it's not even country, but Chris Daughtry, rock artist, so easily my all-time favorite artist, and I will say that until the day I die. I just got to see him a few months ago, and it was one of the best experiences I've had in my life, and it really just gave me that kick in the ass to really just say like, listen, this is what I need to do. I want to be that songwriter and producer. And there's just so many inspirations, and I know you're probably going to have a huge list of them here, but who are some artists that you kind of really look up to in the music business when it comes to really just getting in your groove and writing, and just who did you kind of look up to when you started singing and stuff?
Oh, I have a triangle I tell people that because I've honed this question in because I love it. Um, but I have like a triangle, so I have three peers that I look up to.
Yeah.
So Travis Tritt, John Mellencamp, and Bob Seger. So I mean, they're not country, other than Travis Tritt. They're more of independent. Or um, I guess Bob Seger and John Mellencamp kind of rock and roll,
Yeah.
but John Mellencamp's more like Americana, very just for the working man, and that's what I'm about, man. I'm for the blue collar person. I'm here for the nurse that just got off a 24-hour shift.
Yep.
I'm there for the police back of the line, the firefighters, the first responders. Like I'm for them. That's what my music is about. And my biggest influence would have to be those three guys, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some women out there that I look up to, but it's the writing, the energy, the vocals, the power. Like I love Bob Seger's rasp. I love his power. I love Mellencamp's writing, and I love Travis Tritt's showmanship. Like
Yeah.
it's just they're just great dudes, great iconic musicians that I think shaped the way that I write and play music.
Yeah, no, and I mean, honestly, that's awesome because I ask this question all the time. And I mean, there's so many artist names that I've heard of and that I know and I love. And then there's people on here that say things that I have no idea who they're even talking about sometimes.
Right?
And I got to just play my cool and play along saying, oh, yeah, I know who they are. They're good and all that. But
It's kind of like when you like, hey, remember that old gas station that used to be on the corner street? Yeah, dude. Be like, no.
no, exactly. But honestly, that's one of the better answers that I've had because you have that, like you said, that triangle. You kind of
Yeah,
have that figured out, those three guys that just really you take
it was
something
the
from.
foundation, of
Exactly.
those
It's your
guys.
foundation, and you take something from all three of them that really built you into the person that you are. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, all three of them, you can't say enough great things about them. I mean, they're all just fantastic, and they're all hell of a songwriters, too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
going to kind of get into this third question, which is always my favorite question. And I love getting to this one. And before I kind of ask the actual question, I always have to shout out Garrett Walker, who was on the show. He said this perfectly, and I use this analogy now to kind of set up the question. Is the creative process is like a puzzle. Whether you have 500 or 1,000 pieces, you have them kind of all scattered around the floor or on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to figure out where these pieces go. Then you start putting the border together, then you start putting the middle together, and you figure out how everything fits together and where it all goes in the song and where it goes on the puzzle. And by the end, you have this masterpiece. You have this something you can hang up on the wall. This is something that you can listen to and cherish and share with the rest of the world. So
Yeah.
there's never been the same answer when I ask this question. And obviously, as you know, as a songwriter and artist anyway, is what is your creative process like? Just because it's so different and so unique for so many different artists.
And that's the thing. Like mine is no different than anybody else's. It's like it could come to me in the middle of the night. It could come to me in the middle of the day. It could be coming to me while I'm eating a corn dog. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like when it came to American Made, the first single that we did, we wrote that in house in studio, pre-production. So we wrote that. We were looking for an ACDC American like freedom song, something that you could like party behind too. And we wrote that song. We put it out, and it's done great so far. And then Hippie Heart, I wrote by myself. And to be quite honest and transparent, I was so high when I wrote that song. So high. I sat in my parents' barn and I just put pen to paper because a friend of mine gave me the title for it like a couple days before. I was sitting in their garage and his wife came out and was like, "You should write a song called Hippie at Heart." And I was like, "That's a good title."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. A couple days later, I took it back and I just wrote. It was the quickest write
Yep.
and the most easiest because it was something that I grew up on, like the nostalgic of listening to that song. Like
Exactly.
it's got an old time like rock and roll Bob Seger vibe, and it's just singing about weed.
Yeah.
But every process for different, like all the songs are different. I have a song that I wrote for my dad that took me 3 months to write
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be perfect.
Exactly.
And if you rush something, it's gonna be garbage.
Yep.
So I love getting that question, and thank you for asking that, Andrew. But like my process is just all over the place. I could take a snippet. It literally is a puzzle. You take snippets from pieces and you put it all together and make sure that it all fits and whatnot. So,
Exactly.
um, but no, I wouldn't say I have a strict writing or
Yeah.
creative process. It's just if it sounds good and it works, I'll just start messing with it until it starts becoming into life.
Exactly. No, and I mean that's why I always ask this question, just because it's so cool and so unique just to hear everyone's perspective. Because, like I said, you can go and listen to any song and be like, "Oh yeah, that's a great song," but then this is why I do these interviews to really hear the backstory and really
Mm-hmm.
hear the behind the scenes stuff on how everything plays out and how the song is actually written and produced and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And it's just crazy because I relate a lot to Hippie at Heart because you said you wrote that with like in a couple hours and you bang that out and it was one of the easiest songs you ever wrote. And I go back, that really just hits me back in 2018 when I lost my grandfather, and I wrote that song about, it was about a month after he had passed away, but I sat down one day and I wrote that thing in 2 hours, and from front to back it was finished. And like we haven't changed anything. Shout out to my boy Nathan Vasquez, who's actually going to be recording it and hopefully getting released later this year. But it's just songs like that just really drive me, and just really I connect a lot with those songs. So just knowing that and hearing that, it's super, super cool.
And I love a good storytelling song too. So
Exactly. I mean, just storytelling aspect, that's just what connects me. That's what the country music's all about. And it's super cool. Kind of getting into the fourth question is always the most difficult question that I ask on the show, and artists either love it or they hate it. And 95% of the time they hate this question, because I tell artists all the time, if you were to reverse psychology and ask me this question, I would have no idea probably how to answer this question at the moment. But hey, that's why I'm the host. That's why I ask the questions. And there's thousands of new artists out there. And obviously, there's artists that play bars and play shows, and they're on social medias just trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get more exposure and show the fans what they're about. So at the end of the day, what makes you compared to all these other artists out there? What can we take away from your music that we can't find in anyone else's music? And just basically to kind of give you the floor here is, what makes Dakota Poorman Dakota Poorman?
exactly that. I am Dakota Poorman. No, I don't care. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks of my music. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, that's okay, because at the end of the day, the people that don't like your music aren't going to help you pay your bills. That's how I look at things. But I mean, you try to like adhere to everybody on the spectrum, right? And but at the end of the day, you got to stay true to yourself, and you got to stay true to the music. And I'm the same as I am on stage as I am off stage.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that will give the shirt off my back for you,
Yep.
but and then I'll be the guy that will help pour the shot into your mouth. uh, so with that being said, it's just my music is for the working man. It's for the working woman. It's just, when you come to a show, you're going to get high energy, 100% all the way through from start to finish, and you're going to leave going. Now, I don't know if I just went to a concert or we just went to Roadhouse. It's a little mixture of both, but I like to get rowdy on stage. I mean, who doesn't? And I like to interact with the crowd. I like to make it about them, because if it's not them, then we mean nothing.
Exactly.
And it's all about the fans. It's all about the crowd, and just having a good atmospheric time that's just in your face, raw energy, high power. And I mean, you just got to come out and see one of our shows just to get the experience.
No,
So that
exactly.
when you come out, then you'll know why I am the way that I am, and why my music is what it is.
No, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, I'll definitely be at a show at some point in the future. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. You never know where anything leads. And that's why these interviews are so cool, because it opens doors like that and makes those connections like that.
Yeah, dude.
So kind of getting into the fifth question, and because after this, and we're going to listen to a little bit of your newest single, and that's always what I love hearing the most. But kind of looking towards your future now a little bit, and just to kind of end all the questions here is, what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and just where can we kind of go down the road with you? What can we expect when that time comes, and just what else do you have in store for us?
Well, that one's kind of a tricky question as well. I love that. My short term, I mean, long term, I just want to write music, record it, and people hear it. I mean, if they don't hear it, that's fine. If they do hear it, great. I just want to know that I'm putting out music that the world wants to enjoy. But long term, or short term, I'd love to get into the Opry in the next 5 years. I'd love to step foot into the circle.
Yeah.
But long term, man, I just want to raise a family, play my music, grow old, and be happy, man. Just love thy neighbor, love everybody, and I'll stay in my lane, and I'll write my music that I like, and I'll put it out, and if people enjoy it, they enjoy it. If they don't, I'll know that I have it.
Exactly. No, and I mean, amen to that. That's a perfect answer right there. And I mean, you're just doing you're doing what you love to do, and you know what you're all about, and that just really shows your artistry, and it shows instant identity to who Dakota Poorman is. And it's super awesome to kind of just hear your whole story through these questions. And obviously that's kind of all the questions that I have, and it's going to be getting to the good part is listening to the song. But obviously just thank you for taking time to answer those questions and kind of really just elaborate more on your story through music and the behind the scenes on how things kind of work for you.
Well, I appreciate you, Ace, for having me on and talking about them, because if it weren't for people like you, nobody would know.
Exactly. And that's what I'm all about. And I'm like the same way as you, kind of like you said, if I can go out of my way to help someone, especially an artist, to really get more exposure and to talk about their story and talk about their music, then at the end of the day, I can sleep good tonight because I know that I talked to 3 different artists and shared their story through music today. So that's an accomplishment for me, and that's something I can put in the books and call it a day with.
I love it, dude. And any way to help out anybody in their careers, so it's all right in my book, man.
Exactly. And I mean, it just, and the one thing that I always go back to when I say something like that is Brandon Davis. I got to shout him out, is because I interviewed him before he went on tour with Tim McGraw a couple months ago. And now that man's just been living it up with Tim McGraw and Russell Dickerson and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it's been crazy. He actually just wrapped up the tour a couple weeks ago. But now looking back, it's like, I mean, he was already killing it anyway on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. But just to go out of my way to kind of help him get a little more exposure, and like before he went on that tour and got big time and stuff like that. It's always cool. And who knows, maybe in 2 or 3 years from now, you'll be one of the biggest country artists out there. And I'll be like, hey, I interviewed him like 2 years ago, and that's good enough for me. I started the process.
Love it. I started the process. I love that.
So obviously getting to the good part is hearing a little bit of the new song that you have out, which is Hippie Heart. You obviously told us during the interview kind of how that song came about, just sitting in the barn, doing what you needed to do and just getting that song out there. And like I said, I was jamming to it for a while before we started this interview this morning, and I'm excited to take a listen to this, man.
I appreciate it, man.
No, of course. So as you all know, is we're gonna play a little bit of Hippie at Heart by Dakota Poorman. Only gonna play a little bit of it. I know y'all yell at me all the time for like, why don't you play the full song? Because I want y'all to go listen to it on all streaming platforms and check it out so he can get the streams and get the love and everything like that. And once you hear this, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. So this is Hippie at Heart by Dakota Poorman. And that's where I'll stop that there, because I want you all to go listen to that. I know it's always like a cliffhanger at the end of a movie or a TV show. But man, I mean, that's always the hard part for me, is when I put that on and I can't put myself on mute to jam out to it. And like, because I don't want people because if I start singing, glass will start breaking and all kinds of shit like that. But it's crazy because like that song is just it's a hit record right there. And I mean, you
Thank
can't
you.
beat that song. And I could sit there and I mean, I've only listened to it a few times like over the last few weeks, but I already know every word by heart, and it's a jam, man, and I love it.
I love it. Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
No, of course. So kind of before I do my little outro here and we kind of end the show on a good note, is where can we find you on social medias?
Instagram at Dakota Poorman Music, Facebook, Twitter, Dakota Poorman, our website, dakotapoorman.com, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, all the fun stuff, wherever you guys get your music, that's where you can find me.
Perfect, man. And I mean, definitely y'all have to go check out Dakota Poorman. Super, super talented. Song you just heard was Hippie at Heart. He also does have one out called American Made as well. That was his first one that he released.
New single comes out in July, and then a whole record drops in July too.
Oh, say less. I like send me on the journey. We're ready.
You're going on the journey, buddy.
I can't wait for that, man. And honestly, again, Dakota, just thank you so much for taking time out of your day to just sit here
Thank you,
and
bud.
talk about your story through music.
I appreciate you, bud. Thank you, Andrew.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is we got a new artist on here each and every week. You never know who's going to be on here. You never know what you're going to see, what you're going to hear. And y'all stay tuned for next week. And thanks for tuning in today.